I have to start out by saying that our struggles as it relates to relationships run so much deeper than the conversations that we have been having or find ourselves having as it pertains to why we struggle in regards to relationships. It has very little or nothing to do at all with where you are from. Our struggles are a lot deeper than what kind of car he drives or whether or not he has a car at all. Our struggles are a lot deeper than where he works or if he has a job or if she has children from a previous relationship or whether or not you have a college degree and whether or not you belong to a specific or particular fraternity or sorority. Our struggles run so much deeper than the conversations that we have concerning why we struggle. Our struggles are actually not against flesh and blood, but our struggles are against principalities and powers. Now, for those of you who have sat inside of a church building, you recognize that piece of scripture that our struggles, or we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. I'm not trying to turn this into a religious conversation. We are talking about principles. So, what are principalities and powers? Well, these principalities are the authorities, the powers that be, and they basically determine what are the rules for social order. And so we wrestle not against flesh and blood, the rulers themselves, but we wrestle against the rules. The rules affect our belief system and they're therefore affecting our behavior. As our beliefs shift and have shifted over the years, we're becoming less and less of a we based society and more of a me based society. This is what I mean. If you've been paying attention at all, then you should have noticed that we have morphed into a more secular society. Secular is denoting attitudes, activities, or other things that have no religious or spiritual basis. Basically, we've shrunken, or in many cases, removed basic fundamental principles that are found in your scriptures. We've made them of no use. We took prayer out of schools. We made it a crime. We've criminalized praying before sporting events. These are just examples. And we've criminalized praying in public or in any state-funded facility for that matter. And so our beliefs and our behavior is shifting away from those basic fundamental principles that we were taught, that were found in your scriptures, and now we've become a more secular society. And how does this affect you? Well, whenever a society becomes more secular, then the rules becomes more secular. In other words, to become more secular means also to become less spiritual. To become more secular means that you have to become less religious, not in your practices per se, but in your thinking and in your rationalization. So the absence of these basic fundamental principles uh, and or the presence of the wrong principles, this is driving men and women towards what we want to call individualism. Individualism is the habit or principle of being independent. Independent means by yourself, and self-reliant. Now that sounds pretty good on the surface. It sounds almost like it's a good thing, but don't be misled. It is a social theory. Individualism is a social theory favoring freedom of action for individuals over collective or state control. Sounds pretty good, especially since we hate the word control, more specifically when it is preceded by a word state and state control. We don't like the way that sounds. But when you really cut it open, are you really promoting the belief that the needs of one person is more important than the needs of an entire society? And if that is the case, then we're promoting that one player's needs is more important than the needs of the entire team, which also means that the needs of one family member is more important and takes priority of the needs of the family. The needs of the man or the needs of the woman, the needs of the husband or the needs of the wife as individuals become more important than what the marriage needs in order to function properly. And that's why I ask the question, are you willing to do what it takes to be in a healthy, high functioning marriage of fulfillment? It comes down to stability. When you move away from basic fundamental principles that allow us to consider one another before considering ourselves, we become destabilized as a unit. We become a house divided against itself. We become a house built on sand. Stability is so important in so many areas because we inherently as human beings, we desire and long after stability. I can't think of one scenario where instability is a good thing. We want stable friendships. We want stable finances. We want stable careers. You don't want to be in a building that is unstable. Trust me on this one. You don't want joint instability. You need your joints to be stable if you're going to get up and move around efficiently. Even on a molecular level, when you get into physics and chemistry and you get down to the subatomic level of how the human body functions, you're talking about an atom that when it loses an electron, because electrons like to run in pairs, that atom or that molecule becomes unstable and it wreaks havoc throughout your body, causing a plethora of health issues. It's called free radical damage or oxidative stress. I can't think of one scenario where instability is a good thing. So this is what we've descended towards in society. We've become more secular. We've shrunken the basic fundamental principles in which it used to govern how we believed and what we thought and how we made decisions. And now we're making decisions based on those things that are surface and superficial and not principle based. Your ability to choose a good mate, if it lacks principles, then you're going to always put yourself in an unstable situation when trying to choose and determine if someone is a good fit for you and you're not basing it on fundamental principles. So how do you change this? Well, in order to change a belief system or to change anything for that matter, two things you have to actually do. You not only have to love one thing, but you have to hate the consequence of the absence of the thing in which you love. I think I'll try to say that one again. There are two things that you have to do. It's not enough to just love one thing, but you have to hate the consequence of the absence of that thing in which you love. It's not enough to love winning. You have to also hate losing. It's almost Like when the scripture says that you cannot serve two masters, you have to love one and hate the other. We have to stop straddling the fence. We have to put self aside, selfish needs and concerns, and we have to begin to think collectively again. We have turned into a society that if you don't get what you want, when you want it, how you want it, then there has to be something wrong with everyone else. Stability also means strength, security, solidity. And without that, we are no more than a house divided against ourselves. Since we are that, and we've degenerated to that as men and women, we have become unrelatable to one another. I'm glad we're having the conversation. But if we don't impart principles, fundamental, sound principles, into the conversation, then we're just spinning our wheels. Remember, I'm only here to help because I want for you what I want for myself. I want you guys to be happy, and if you're not happy, then let's take a look at those principles. Let's take inventory of your principles. I want you to be healthy. If you're not healthy, take a look at your fundamental principles concerning health. I want you to live a life of longevity. If that looks like it's not happening for you because of your attitudes towards food and exercise, then those are principle issues, not dietary issues. I want you to live a life of fulfillment. And if you are unfulfilled, then I guarantee you it is time to develop sound principles to live the rest of your life on. These are the things that I want for you. These are the things that I try to practice. These are the things that I try to promote. I want to promote principles. Principles. Strong relationships are built on strong principles, not pride.